Hi, the SI meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday, October 24th. All eyes continue to be on the tropics. Still a very interesting and perhaps incredible weather situation developing. There still is the potential for a major storm along the mid-Atlantic and northeast U.S. coast early next week. It appears as if Tropical Storm Sandy, which is just under hurricane status right now, will move north, continue to move north over the island of Jamaica and then Cuba and then into the western Atlantic, and for a while it looks like it'll be curving to the north and east, but then a deep upper level trough with a lot of cold air associated with it is likely to pull it towards the mid-Atlantic or northeast coast come Monday time frame. Now that is not written in stone, of course. There are still some disagreements amongst the computer forecast models, but the main U.S. model to me last night made kind of a significant shift in some of its ensemble runs, and we'll get to that in a moment or two. Let's take a look at the latest infrared satellite image. This is from the SSEC Wisconsin website. Here's the center of Sandy right now. It's a tropical storm just under hurricane status. Sustained winds at 70 miles per hour. Could very well reach hurricane status later on today or tonight. There's the island of Jamaica, and here's Cuba. Pretty much in full agreement here that it'll continue on a northward path, move over Cuba, Jamaica, and then Cuba into the western Atlantic, and then it appears as if it'll kind of start to curve to the north and east. And we talked about this yesterday, that at this point the models tend to have a vast disagreement. Some of the models then bring it back in towards the coast, and still the main operational U.S. model, the GFS model, continues to move it out to sea. However, the ensemble runs of the GFS model last night, and we'll show that in a moment, kind of had a significant shift last night with many of those ensemble runs pulling it towards the coast. And I think this is probably a harbinger of things to come. I believe the GFS model will come more in line with the really the more menacing looking European model over the next day or two. Here's a colorized infrared loop from the Penn State eWall site of Sandy, and you can see it's really forming nicely here. It's intensifying, has a nice comma shape to it, and there's the island of Jamaica that will get pounded by strong winds and heavy rains today as it continues to move to the north. Again, it looks like pretty much all models agree that it'll move on a northward track across the island of Jamaica and then eastern part of Cuba out over the Bahamas into the western Atlantic, and then take a turn to the north and east before potentially being pulled back in towards the New Jersey or New York or New England coastal region early next week. Well, here's kind of an ugly looking map here, but I think it's a critical piece of evidence here as to what the GFS, the main U.S. forecast model, may do over the next couple of days. This is a plot that shows the different ensemble runs, and what an ensemble forecast is. There's the operational GFS model, and then they run a whole series, perhaps up to about 20 different scenarios with slight differences in the initial conditions, and just to see what kind of an impact slight differences in the initial conditions can mean on the ultimate track of, in this case, track of Tropical Storm Sandy. And this is quite a change from the last couple of GFS ensemble runs. First of all, there still appears to be several tracks that pull the storm harmlessly out to sea, but notice all these squiggly lines here represent different ensemble runs. There's a whole bunch of ensemble runs now with the GFS model that do what the European model has been doing for the last several days, basically pulling it towards the mid-Atlantic or northeast coast early next week. And this sometimes is a harbinger of what the operational GFS model will do. So the fact that this is kind of a significant shift in the GFS model, I believe the GFS model will start to trend more towards the European model, perhaps in a day or two, and in which case the more menacing solution of the storm getting pulled towards the mid-Atlantic or northeast coast will ultimately be verified. Well, here is the official 5-day forecast going from the National Hurricane Center, and I guess, again, I think all models tend to agree with this. The storm itself will move over Jamaica and then Cuba and then into the western part of the Atlantic over the Bahamas, start to turn to the north and east, but then from this point it's where a lot of the divergence occurs within the models, where some models continue to pull it out to sea harmlessly, whereas others pull it in towards the mid-Atlantic and northeast coast early next week. And again, the GFS model has been the main holdout in pulling the storm harmlessly out to sea, but even its own ensemble runs now are increasingly looking more threatening for the mid-Atlantic and northeast coast early next week. Well, here's the GFS forecast map from last night's zero-Z run. This is for Monday night, and here you have this storm well off the coast. This is, again, the operational, the one model that is pulling the storm seemingly harmlessly out to sea. But I want to show you the next particular time frame in this GFS model run. Right here, this is the next frame before Tuesday night. And notice, even though the center of the storm is way off the coast, even the GFS now, the operational model, is putting kind of a secondary low right over New England, New York State, New England. And so, again, I think between what's happening now with the operational run, showing some signs of low pressure here along the mid-Atlantic, New England coast, along with the GFS own ensemble runs indicating lots of tracks towards this coast, I think the GFS is starting to transition to more like the European model, which again indicates the higher likelihood of a major storm along the mid-Atlantic and northeast coast early next week. Here, by the way, is the European model forecast for Monday night with a powerful storm sitting right off the mid-Atlantic coast, and the next frame it pulls it inland. And if this scenario verifies, and again I think the GFS is headed more and more towards this scenario, of course there will be powerful damaging winds, heavy coastal rains, and even inland snows that could pile up in places like western Pennsylvania and West Virginia as cold air wraps in behind it on the west and southwest side of this particular storm. So there could be significant snows. At some point, this storm becomes kind of a hybrid storm. It loses its tropical characteristics and becomes a major nor'easter. But nonetheless, the results are the same. A potential damaging event here in the mid-Atlantic and northeast early next week. It's still not written in stone, but we'll continue to monitor this over the next few days here at the SIweather.com. That's it for now. I'm the SI Meteorologist.